Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Raspass, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Hello, this is Angela Raspass, and welcome to episode 63 of the Your Next Chapter podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. Well, this is the first episode in a series which I'm calling The Circle of Support. Now, this is where I'm having wholehearted conversations with a lovely bunch of ladies who are sharing some personal insights into how they have formed the circle of support around them that keeps them buoyant in business and in life. Now, this isn't just that concept of when you surround yourself with those 5 people, those ones that are most important to you, they'll have the biggest influence and impact on you. That part's absolutely true, and I very much agree with it. But I also feel that there are other areas that equally contribute to your being able to flourish in your next chapter business and life. And in fact, I've done a little bit of a mind map. I think there's 4 key areas in which we need to put our attention and take some inspired action to take care of ourselves. Now, you can download this mind map. It's freely available on the show notes for this page, which you'll just find at angelaraspass.com/63, number 6 and 3. And this mind map, I see our circle of support being in 4 key areas. Now, one of those is physical, another is emotional and spiritual, another is community and connection, and the 4th is mindset and mentoring. So when I sat down and was thinking about these women that I wanted to talk about how it is that they take care of themselves, I thought I should do the same exercise myself. And I really encourage you to as well. So grab that download and map out your own circle of support. Because, here's the truth. When we're on this entrepreneurial journey, there is a heck of a lot of ups and downs. It doesn't matter whether you are just starting out, whether you've been in business for a few years or for ages. We still all have those ups and downs. Those days when you feel like you can leap tall buildings in a single bound and everything is possible. And then those days where you just want to stay in bed because it all feels so damn hard and you're wondering when it's ever going to come together. Well, I absolutely believe that it is important for you to have your circle of support intact, organized, in place before the proverbial does hit the fan. We want to make sure that you have things that are preventing burnout or preventing, getting stuck in fear, because fear and doubt are just a natural part of this journey. But if we get stuck there because we don't have the tools or the practices to lift ourselves back up again, it can make for a pretty miserable journey. So this is an incredibly important part of being an entrepreneur. Because here's the truth, self-care is not selfish. It's essential. We've heard those stories about put your own oxygen mask on first and take care of yourself first before you can help everybody else. And it becomes almost cliched. But under every good cliche, there's truth. And I have to say that I really discovered the importance of this more than ever last year. Now, if you've been in my community for a while, you would have heard me sharing how I had a lot of family challenges last year that were very emotionally draining. And it was hard. It was really hard to keep all those balls juggling in the air. And I honestly believe the only way that I did manage to get through 2016 intact was because my circle of support was so strong. And it's really in that year that I did more than pay lip service to that concept that self-care is not selfish. I realized how utterly true it was. And it allowed me, when I took care of myself, to be a far better mother and partner and friend and a much better business owner where I could continue to take care of the clients that I love and who rely on working with me. So getting that importance made me realize that this is a subject we need to talk about more openly. And it's not just the self-love movement. As much respect as I have for that, and I absolutely believe that our worthiness has to be at the core of every part of our business and life, it goes a little further than that as well, which is why I shared that idea of the quadrant and those 4 areas that we need to have a look at. But here's the thing, they blend into each other. There is no distinct categories where one starts and finishes here, then the next one starts. It is a blend. It is a recipe. And you need to find the ingredients that work best for you, because it'll be different for every person. So the interviews that I'm conducting is really, as I said, to provide you with some inspiration, perhaps some reinforcement, perhaps some nodding and, yeah, I do that too. And yes, it's working for me. Or perhaps, haven't thought about that one. Maybe I should bring it into my circle. So today I'd like to share what my circle of support looks like, hopefully to provide you with some of that inspiration and invitation as well to get involved in these similar ways. So let's look at the first quadrant, shall we? The first one is physical. And look, I'm the first to admit I've probably got some work to do here, but there are some things that I do enjoy. Now, one of those is soccer. In winter, I play full pitch soccer. And, at 48, some people have told me that's a bit crazy because, yes, I do have pretty dodgy ankles and I'm nursing an injury at the moment to my Achilles. But here's the thing with soccer. When I was growing up back in New Zealand as a little girl, and then in my younger years and into my teenage years, I had and still do have really crap eyesight. And I have what's called parallax. I can't judge distance very well. And that put the sports of the day, which were essentially netball and softball, where I grew up in New Zealand, they were not possible for me. So I really missed out on the team sports. I actually turned to athletics, quite an individual sport. So to play a team sport in my 40s was just a revelation to me and so much fun. And to me, soccer is a type of mindfulness because when I am on the pitch, I have to be fully present. I'm not doing any of that past pondering or that future tripping. I'm absolutely in the moment. You have to be, or you get smacked on the head by a soccer ball. So that's a part of my life that physically makes me feel great. Although, the fitness does need to be brought up a notch or two. So I'm investigating some other things. A lot of the conversations I've had with other Next Chapter women, we're talking about how the actions we take today are going to have an enormous impact on our physicality in the future. And so for me, I know flexibility is something that I certainly want to look at. So a great girlfriend of mine is enticing me to come and try Pilates. And I'm also keen on looking at yoga. Now, I do bring yoga and meditation practitioners whenever I'm running a Next Chapter business retreat. It's part of the overall program to bring us into that space. And that's the only time I've actually used yoga. And so now that I've moved into a new area of Sydney, there's yoga studios all around, and it's something that I'm going to have a look at. So what is it for you physically that makes you feel great? Is it dancing? Is it walking? Is it rowing? Is it tennis? What is it? Bring some into your life that gives you that energy. Because obviously I shouldn't say obviously, but when we are physically active, it really does give you those endorphins and give you that feeling of energized self, which I think is so important. But there's another part to the physical support as well, and that's the use of or working with practitioners that are right for you. Now for me, that's a combination of a gorgeous naturopath who I work with, who keeps me our central goal with my naturopathy, I think is how you pronounce it, is to become more calm. Now, I'm a person that has a lot of ideas and a lot of energy, and it's necessary for me to bring that in a little bit so I can access those ideas in a more calmer environment and take action on them. So that's certainly been one of our goals, and the naturopathic services have certainly helped me there. I also am a great lover of reflexology, and in fact just discovered a new practitioner now that I'm in this new area of Sydney, and that's just sensational. It's one of my very, very favourite ways of reconnecting and slowing down. And I also go and see a gorgeous intuitive masseuse who gets all the knots out, but also channels some pretty interesting messages whilst I'm on the table. So it's a gorgeous combination. And it's really necessary for us to be in touch with our doctors, the basic tests to check our health. I'm aware now that I have high blood pressure that I need to take care of. It's something that runs in our family. And it's one of those silent killers, to be honest. It's not good not to be aware of it. I had no idea until I actually had some tests done, these things that I was facing, but now I can take steps to take care of them. So there's lots of pieces that come into that physical space. So I'd like you to stop and think, what is it for me? What do I need to check? What do I need to bring into my support circle to take care of me physically? There's diet, there's lots of other things we could talk about, but that's the pieces here that resonate most strongly with me. So let's move on to the next quadrant, the emotional and spiritual quadrant. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I do consider myself a spiritual person, and my concept of a connection to a higher power, be that universe, God, internal force, whatever you want to call it, but that higher power connection, that feeling of being connected to nature, that there's something bigger than me in the world and I'm being taken care of, is something that took a while to form, and I really had to explore it as I came into my 40s and discovered what that meant for me. So however you practice some sort of spiritual connection, my belief is that it's an important part of our circle of support. Now, I'm also a part of a 12-step fellowship and have been for many, many years, and that is a great source of emotional and spiritual comfort for me as well. One of my favorite meetings that I go to, we just talk about how did you handle your week? How did you handle the stresses that came up? And those kindred spirits and that emotional support is an enormous part of my circle in that respect. I've also played around with meditation, but I've got to admit, I got that monkey mind, that popcorn brain, and so I rely far more on guided meditations. They're the ones that really help me. I'm not, in the lotus position for 30 minutes. That doesn't work for me. Perhaps it will in the future, but right now, short guided meditations that I find online are perfect, and they really help me just pause and slow down, which is definitely the goal for me. I also am a big believer in what I call the bookends of your day. So starting, in my case, I start with journaling in the morning. And the morning pages is from, oh my goodness, I've forgotten the name of the book again. It's on the tip of my tongue. I'll probably remember it as soon as I hit pause on this recording, but I'll pop it. I know it's Julia Cameron, and I'll pop it onto the page along with the show notes. But this morning pages journaling is free flow writing. And the reason I think this is really important as part of my support is that your brain is not designed to be a filing cabinet. Get the stuff out onto the paper, because what I see so often is that our concerns and our fears get recycled. The same old stuff comes up again and again, and honestly, by committing it to paper, I recognize the patterns and I get less freaked out by them, and I can remind myself, there's that story again of I'm not good enough, or it's never going to happen, or everyone has it easier than me. And recognizing those stories, it really takes away their power. So the other part of the bookend of the day for me is the gratitude list. It was something that was taught to me when I came into the 12-step fellowship, and I've been doing it ever since. And the beauty is I now literally have dozens of journals chock-a-block with these observations of gratitude. Now, this is not rocket science. It's something you've heard before, but hearing something and actually doing it are often two different things. And it helps you. I really, truly believe the gratitude list exercise helps you filter for the good. And over time, that rewires your brain, and you start noticing the fabulous things in life so much more. It can be little tiny things that go onto that list as well as great big things. But looking back through it just fills me up with this feeling of gratitude, of how wonderful life can be in and around the challenges that life also gives. So that gratitude list is a big part of that emotional and spiritual support. Other pieces, the power of the pause. That's probably one of the biggest. That just being able to pause and breathe so that you can respond rather than react. I don't do this perfectly, believe me, but I do it a lot better than I used to, a lot more often than I used to. I give myself that space between stimulus and response. And there's a world of possibility in that space. And that power is there for you to grab if you allow yourself the power of the pause. So something to certainly have a look at. It's a big part of my emotional buoyancy is being able to pause. There's two other things, actually two or three here on my list that I look at. EFT, the emotional freedom technique, you would have heard of it as tapping. It's emotional acupuncture, it's also been referred to as. It's something that I learned. I went and became a level 2 practitioner in it a few years ago. And I love EFT because of its mobility. It's something that you can do on the spot. You don't have to go to a practitioner to have the benefits of this particular modality. You can literally do it right here, right now. It's brilliant for helping you move through fear in the moment, or doubt or concern in the moment, but it can also be something that you work on misbeliefs, as I call them, longer term, and break down their power over you. So, look, hey, when I first thought of it, I thought it was a bit crazy. But like many things, if you can approach with curiosity and openness, it can become part of your ingredients and that recipe of your circle of support. There might be something else that resonates more with you, but EFT is a great one. And add to that another acronym, it's ACT, A-C-T, which is Acceptance, Commitment, Therapy or Training. Again, I went and did workshops under Dr. Russ Harris here in Australia. And ACT is all about understanding that fear, doubt, pain, challenge, all of those things happen to us, but rather than have them right up in front of your face, you can actually put them down so that you continue working, moving forward, carrying on with your business and life, regardless of those challenges. Basically taking them off center stage. It's a little tricky to explain just in a podcast like this, but I will give you the link to the conversation, the interview that I did with Russ Harris, which was fantastic, and he explains it a lot better than I can right here. But I also then, once I did the training, I ran a webinar which I recorded that takes you through how to use ACT as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a woman in her next chapter moving forward. So again, it's another link that I'll pop down into the show notes so that you can go and watch that webinar, and see if the ACT principles resonate with you as well. And the last one, this is a really recent discovery. One of the girls in the masterminds that I run was talking about it, and I picked it up from there. It's a thing called Yoga Nidra. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. As I said, it's pretty new. Now, it's nothing to do with yoga per se. It's like a guided meditation. I use it at night. There's one that I found on YouTube that I really enjoy. And I don't know how the meditation ends because I always fall asleep. And I think that's the goal for helping me settle and rest my emotions at night and turn off that monkey mind. Once again, I'll put that link in the show notes so that you can have a look at the Yoga Nidra too. I found it really, really helpful. So that's the second quadrant, and let's move on to the third, the idea of community and connection. Now, this entrepreneurial journey of isolation when we're often working alone, it's not great to be alone all the time. And so that's where things that I call belief buddies really come in. Now, a belief buddy is someone who holds your vision in their heart just as much as you do. They understand what you're trying to achieve, where you're going, how important it is to you, the contribution you want to make. And they're there for you when you're having those crap stay under the doona days, and they're there for you when you're having those fabulous, I feel so inspired days. They're there to share the ups and the downs, and most importantly, you are there to do the same for them. Now, I am blessed to have a beautiful circle of belief buddies. And here's the thing, I actually met most of them through social media, initial conversations that happened in Facebook groups that I was a part of. And, you get that tingle of, here's a kindred spirit. I really would like to spend more time with this person. So you invite further conversation. And if you're lucky as I have been, they can blossom into the most gorgeous of friendships. I have a funny story. One of these gorgeous belief buddies of mine is Brenda, who's down in Tasmania at the bottom of Australia. And we met in a Facebook group through a program that we'd done. And after we'd been talking backwards and forwards and had Skype calls, I invited Brenda to come up and spend some time with us in Sydney. And my kids and I, this is going back, oh my goodness, about 5 years ago now, and my kids and I went out to the airport to pick Brenda up, and my son looked at me and said, "So let me get this right, Mum. You met her online, you've been chatting, she seems like a really nice girl, so you're inviting her to come over. Is this the sort of behaviour you'd like us to emulate?" And I had to laugh, because of course as parents, that's the last thing that you want to encourage with your kids online. But hey, it worked out for us, so that just still makes us laugh all these years later. So if you can find yourself or are now connected with one or two belief buddies, you have an enormous advocate for you in your circle of support, and it's a fabulous thing to have. So obviously there's other ways in which you can connect with like-minded people. There's all sorts of events and meetups and networking, lots and lots of opportunities. And so it's a case of you making the effort. I know myself that it's easy for me working from home, living here, to stay in my little introverted, extroverted world. I'm that one of those, I think they call us ambiverts, where I'm extremely expressive and love company, but I also need to regroup. But a little while ago, I realised that I had become a bit isolated here in my new community that I didn't know that well yet. So I've been making a concerted effort to reach out and connect with new people and reconnect with old friends. And it's making a big difference. And I feel a lot more buoyant, which is exactly the purpose of nurturing a circle of support. So think about your community and your connections. And at this stage, I'd love to invite you to come and join our community. The Your Next Chapter community is a closed Facebook group, and you can find your way there by just going to angelaraspass.com/community, and you'll find a button to access the closed Facebook group. That's where you can come and have conversations with other Next Chapter women who are on the same journey as you, which is what this is all about. And so that brings us to the final quadrant, as I see it in this mind map of the circle of support. And this is your mindset and mentoring part. Now remember, all of these quadrants blend together. There is no real lines between them, but I like to pull them out separately, because your mindset is, oh my goodness, it's your success in business is often 90% mindset. If you think you can, you're halfway there. If you think you can't, you're right. So having a buoyant mindset is absolutely essential to take you forward so that you can expand into the possibilities that are becoming available to you in your next chapter. Now, how do I take care of my mindset? Well, in a few key ways. I'm a huge reader of books. I eat books for breakfast. I love books. I have so many distant mentors and way showers through the pages of books. And that's a huge part of my life. And there is on my website, there's a whole load of books that I recommend there if you're wanting some recommendations for what to read. And I quite often interview authors on the podcast and talk about other books as well. Yeah, a bit of a book fiend, and I still love the real thing. I have a Kindle, but there's still, for me, nothing quite like getting that book in your hands, the anticipation of what you're going to find inside. And so I encourage you here to deface your books. Oh my goodness, what do I mean? I mean, don't be afraid to pull out the highlighters, the post-it notes, the write, in the margins of the books. And I also keep a journal about my books. So the insights and the aha moments, I pull them out and put them into that journal. And I'm beginning to encourage myself to pause, power of the pause, after reading, and to actually decide, how will I put this aha moment, how will I take action on this inspiration within my own business and life? Because my tendency is to finish a book, go, oh my goodness, that was awesome. Where's the next one? And if I don't give myself that room to digest and to integrate and to nourish myself with the information and the inspiration that I've received, then I can just end up a bit bloated. So really encourage you, if you're a book fiend like myself, to take action in that same way. The second piece that really contributes to my having a healthy mindset is that I have a mindset coach. I've invested with the gorgeous Larissa from Everyday Inspiration, who's up in Queensland in Australia, for almost 3 years now, and the conversations we have are just astonishing. I credit Larissa with really helping me expand in my next chapter to just make connections and to see possibilities that perhaps I could not have done alone. And hey, I think mindset coaching is just a really important part of this entrepreneurial journey. Perhaps not all the time, but occasionally it certainly helps, and I know it's really important for me. And the last piece is that I do reach out to mentors to close specific skill gaps when I need to. If there's something that I really need to understand, or if there's an area in my business that I can see where I need help and assistance, I have no hesitation in investing in myself, because I know how much that will pay off in terms of my ability to grow my business, my impact, the way I can help others. But there's another piece to this, and this has become incredibly important to me over the last 2 years. I've become involved in masterminds. Now, it's an expression you've probably heard before. A mastermind is when people come together and there's the synergy of the contribution to each other to make something bigger than the sum of its parts. That's the essence of a mastermind. But how it actually looks for me in practice is that I'm in a mastermind that's run by the gorgeous Liz Scully. She flits between Antwerp and London and New York and takes care of these small pods of mastermind clients. There's 4 of us typically in a group, and that to me is the perfect size because it's not too big. You get the attention that you need as an entrepreneur to have that spotlight on your business when you're together each fortnight. And that mastermind, oh my goodness, I think I underestimated the importance of the emotional support when I joined it. I knew I would get the strategic support that I'm looking for as I take my business to new levels, but I, as I said, underestimated the importance of being seen and supported by other women on the same journey. I understood it as a concept, but when I experienced it at this level, it transformed me and the way I do business. Absolutely love it. And I've just invested in 2018 as well. That's what I will be using as my central pillar of support throughout the next year. But what the other part that being in this mastermind, the influence that it's had on me is the change to my own business core. Because I did a heck of a lot and always have one-on-one personal mentoring, and have been blessed to have gorgeous clients that I've worked with, really what I call most aligned clients, as I've become clearer on who I'm here to help. But what's happened is that I've recognized that although that personal mentoring is important and can really rocket people through into getting their business developed, masterminds where women are together in that support circle over a longer period of time is now the way that I provide the majority of my services. I have next chapter success circles where, using exactly the same model that I've been taught by Liz and taught how to facilitate masterminds, I bring 4 women together in these small groups and we work together on a fortnightly basis where we hot seat and go through the challenges that each person is having in their business right here and now. And instead of just getting my perspective, each individual woman also gets the reflections, the insight and the wisdom and the fresh perspective from the other women who are in each group. And the beautiful thing is that we really get to know each other and each other's businesses. So those insights and observations come from a real place of care and knowledge. And it makes an enormous difference to feel that level of continued support and understanding. There's a lot of accountability, obviously, because we're goal setting every fortnight and we're also meeting outside of the groups in the Facebook group that's associated with each mastermind. There's personal mentoring from me, and then I get all of my masterminds together. I'm usually running 4 or 5 at a time for retreats, face-to-face, in-person retreats twice a year. And that is... They're, to be honest, some of my favourite parts of business, seeing those friendships that have formed, but then working really, really carefully and thoroughly and inspirationally on our businesses. I have my girls and women work in 90-day plans, and that's what we put together and bring to fruition at those retreats. So really, the circle of support that the women in my masterminds are experiencing, they'll have all these different ingredients in their life, I'm hoping, that I've been talking about and giving examples of. But the icing on the cake is that anchoring down into a mastermind. And yes, I would love to invite you, my lovely listener, if a mastermind having that type of support feels like something that would really be a great recipe for you, then I invite you to have a look at what's involved. You can simply go to angelaraspass.com/circle and you'll see what the program is all about, what it offers to you, and lots of feedback there from my gorgeous clients who are involved in circles at the moment. Circles are perfect for you if you're in a service-based business and you're in the first, say, 1 to 3 years of business. But I also run a different type of mastermind for women who are further on in their business evolution and journey as well. So we can have a chat about that. But that's only one part. That mastermind opportunity is certainly something that I'm a huge fan of, naturally, since I'm also involved in them. I know what the benefits are. But whether you take up an invitation with myself or anybody else to provide you with that mentoring and mindset support, I really want you to focus on the other quadrants that are in this mind map of support, looking at how you're taking care of yourself physically and what other assistance you need in that area to fulfill the needs that you have there, to look at that emotional and spiritual part of your support circle. What's working really well for you? Where are there gaps that will be great for you to focus on and close? And to look at that community and connection point as well. How can you reach out and create those belief buddies and get involved so that you don't sit in isolation, so that you do have that support around you that keeps you buoyant? The recipe is different for everybody. The ingredients are different for everybody. But it's really important, as I mentioned right at the beginning of this particular episode, don't wait until a challenge trips you up to then have to scramble around and work out how you can best be supported and uplifted. Make sure that those structures and those foundations are in place, because not only does that help you during challenges, but it also enriches you during celebrations. When things are going well, it's so important to be celebrating, to be sharing those insights and those successes with the people who mean a lot to you in business and in life, but also to celebrate yourself. One of the things that I do every week, which I actually forgot to mention, is I buy myself flowers each and every week. It's one of the things that makes me feel happy. And when I'm happy, I'm a much better wife, partner, mother, and also business owner. And so what makes you happy? What makes you feel supported and buoyant and inspired and ready to, keep on this journey with all of its ups and downs and detours and cul-de-sacs and mountaintops that we get to throughout this next chapter? I'd love to hear what there is in there for you. One of the ways in which we can communicate is you can leave a comment on the podcast page. You can send me an email at clarity@angelaraspass.com. You can pop into the Facebook group and join all the other Next Chapter women on the same journey. There's so many ways you can be supported, and I'd love to be a part of your support circle in the way that fits best for you. So thanks again for your time here today. Tune in for the next episodes. I'm talking to some amazing women just like you who are sharing those insights that, as I mentioned, I hope you'll take inspiration and practical guidance from as well, so that you've got a really strong circle of support so you can flourish in your next chapter. I'll talk to you again really soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspass.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.